Hi everyone, so I've seen a bunch of these on YouTube before, so I figured I would do my own because it's just like I can relate so much besides for the teens who have had twins. But this is like my 15 and 16 pregnant. I'm not pregnant right now because I'm 16, but this is my 15 and pregnant story. Last year in, I'd like to say early May, late April is when I actually started showing the signs of being pregnant. Like, I had missed my period all through April. I didn't think anything of it. But then toward the end of May, I still hadn't got my period. I was getting a little concerned, but I still didn't think a whole lot of it. But then I started getting so nauseous after I ate, like, even the slightest thing. Like a strawberry, I'd get nauseous off. A cracker, I would get nauseous off. And nobody really noticed. They thought I was just having like the stomach flu or something. So every day that I got sick, the school would have to send me home because they really didn't know what was going on, and I would feel better after I threw up, but they still were required to send me home. And then one day in science class, I was ignoring the nausea, wasn't thinking I was going to throw up. But then I ended up throwing up, and I nearly hit the kid in front of me. That's funny, but that's a story for another time. And so the school said, hey, you might want to get Hope into the doctor. She's throwing up every day. You need to know what's going on. So my mom took me into the doctor, and the doctor asked, okay, Hope, I'm going to ask you a few basic questions about this. When was the last time you had sex? I was like, I'd like to say, like, February. And my doctor, she is old-fashioned, so anything she finds that for your age you're doing wrong, she will lecture you on. So she lectured me on having sex at 15. And, then she asked, okay, when was the last time you had your period? I was like, March. So she's like, so you hadn't had it April or May? I'm like, no. So she ran a urine and blood pregnancy test. They both came out positive. So my mom was at the doctor's office with me, so she was the first one to know besides me and my doctor. And so when we got home, we had to tell my stepdad, and when we told him, he was like, I basically kind of already knew because he's got like this super wolf sense of smell. So I was like kind of creeped out about that, but I'm kind of used to it. So then the next day at school, when I went to school, the nurse called me and said, hey, we got an anonymous call saying that you are pregnant. Is this true? And I was like, and I said yes, and she's like, okay, are you on any prenatals? What's your plan? Are you going to keep the baby, go for adoption, or get an abortion? I was like, my parents are honestly wanting me to get the abortion because I suffer from severe depression and anxiety issues. So that was like their main concern, that I would harm myself to where I'm in the hospital, and my baby at the time was dead. So it would be a suicide attempt and murders. And they didn't want that for me. And I was like, I'm not on prenatals, but I want to keep the baby, but my parents are honestly pushing me to have an abortion. She's like, well, it's not their decision, it's yours. Just keep that in mind. Hope, I need you to get started on prenatals because that will help you traumatically. Even if you do get an abortion or you have a miscarriage, your body will still act like you're having that baby. So I was like, okay, I'll see what I can do. So after I got done talking to the nurse, I had to tell my boyfriend, my daughter's father. And so I pulled him aside in the hall one day. Nobody was around. And I was like, So yesterday when I went to the doctor, she ran a test. He's like, okay, what kind of test? I was like, a pregnancy test. He's like, was it negative? I was like, no, it was positive. You're gonna be a dad. I could see the look in his eyes, like, oh my gosh. Like, he was happy, at the same time he was scared. So then when he went home, he called his mom, because at the time she was down living in Cheyenne, Wyoming, helping out her mom. And I was like, okay. So next thing I know, I'm getting a text saying, you're pregnant, from my future mother-in-law. And I was like, yeah, surprise, Grandma. And so, and my parents scheduled an appointment at an abortion clinic, and when I got there, I was like, I do not want this. My parents are wanting me to come here. And at the time, my mom, she had to drive me just to satisfy my biological father. And my mom was okay with me not wanting it. So was my stepdad. He's like, okay, it's your choice. It was mainly your biological dad who wanted you to go. But I wanted you to know, I was hoping you would get it so you could still have a childhood, and so you're not, just in case your depression gets worse because of all the hormones that are going to be going through your body. I was like, I understand that, but this is something I want. I want to go through the entire experience of being pregnant. I want to have this baby. I want to keep my little miracle. Which they completely understood, and now that it's nearly 6 months after I had her, they completely understand and they love her. So now at my point in the story, we're about early August, and my Uncle Steve comes over and he's like, okay, Peggy, I need you to call your father-in-law, my grandpa. She's like, okay. So she called him. Next thing I know, I'm getting told that my boyfriend is in the hospital. He had caught on fire. I was like, I am 5 months pregnant and he is in the hospital. I called him with my Uncle Steve's phone because our phones were off at the time and we had no internet. And I was just crying as I was talking to him because I could hear that he had a breathing tube in and all that. I was upset. But then in September, around September 9th, September 11th, between those dates, we were camping and he was coming home. On that Saturday we went camping. So my Uncle Kevin drove me in over to his house, where I hopped in the car with his mom and we went to rehab and got him. And I was 6 months pregnant now, and it was crazy because she was asking me, okay, did you take your prenatal today? Have you ate? I was like, I took my prenatal. I ate. Are you satisfied? And then at one of my last OB appointments, he's like, okay, Hope, your blood pressure is rising. You need to go on bed rest. That means you can't go to school. You shouldn't be doing a whole lot. You just need to relax and try to keep your blood pressure down. So I was like, okay. So we called the school and said, hey, the last week of November, gonna be my last week. I need to go on bed rest. Because my new school, because I moved away from the town I originally lived in when I found out I was pregnant. And they're like, okay, we'll get you stuff you need for December and part of January. So I was like, okay, so I got that stuff. We're at December 1st now. I woke up, my night shorts were soaked. So I thought my water had broke, but I wasn't having any contractions. So we went to the ER, said, hey, I think my water broke, but I'm not having any contractions. So they sent me back, and the hospital I went to, they no longer delivered, and they didn't have an OB on call. So I had to take an ambulance ride to Mason City. I live in Iowa. And on the way there, he kept on, the man in the back of the ambulance with me kept on saying, are you feeling any pain, tightness in your abdomen? And then all of a sudden it releases. But then does it keep on happening like every 2 to 3 minutes or 1 to 2 minutes? I was like, I feel a tightness and then a release about every 6. He's like, okay, so that's really nothing to be worried about, but just tell me if they get closer. So I kept on looking at my phone, seeing what time it was when it started and when it stopped, so I could keep track of the minutes. And when we got there, they kept on checking to see how far I was dilated, and I ended up only being like 2 centimeters dilated at the end of the night. So they ended up having to send me home. Okay, 4 days later, I have another misunderstanding. Like, I kept on feeling contractions. They were pretty rough. So I went back to Mason City just to find out an hour later, as soon as my boyfriend got there, oh, we're going to send you home. I'm like, really? Because I was 3 centimeters dilated. And then the next day I had an OB appointment, so they figured, okay, see what your doctor says. So my doctor said they should have just kept you at 3 centimeters dilated, because the next day I was 4 centimeters. But because of my blood pressure being so high, they decided, okay, Saturday you're going to come in at 7 a.m., we're going to break your water, we're going to induce your labor. Alright, so Friday night comes around, my boyfriend, his name is Destin, I should have mentioned that earlier, comes over and stays the night, so his mom is not getting up superbly early and driving him to Mason City. And I couldn't sleep because I was having severe pain. So I called up Mason City, hey, I am having severe pain. I can't sleep because of it. Like, alright, try taking a hot bath, drinking some warm chamomile tea, try putting a heating pad over your stomach or wherever the pain is. So I tried all that, and I was sitting at the foot of my parents' bed crying. And then my dad realized, okay, we need to go. She is not doing alright. So then my dad gets us to Mason City about midnight or a little bit after. They're like, okay, Hope, you're 9 centimeters dilated. You should have been here a while ago. I was like, I called a while ago. They're like, oh, we should just told you to come in. And so a couple hours roll by. It's like 2 a.m. now. And they're like, okay, Hope, your water's not breaking on its own. We're going to have to break it. So at 2, they broke my water. And then at 3 o'clock, they had me set up to get pushing. And then an hour, 4 o'clock, 4:29, my daughter was born. So December 8th, 2018, at 4:29 in the morning, my daughter was born. That's my little girl. She's napping. But I honestly wouldn't trade her for the world. Alrighty, so thanks for listening. Bye.